Welcome, traveler. Tonight we drift back in time, far beyond temples and kings, into the silent waters where the world itself was waiting to be born. Close your eyes, breathe deeply with me, in and out, and let the noise of your day sink beneath the waves. You are safe here. We will journey together through the ancient myths of Egypt, from the still waters of Nun to the rising of the first sun, from the birth of gods to the balance of Ma'at. These are stories told for thousands of years to remind us of harmony, of patience, and of the eternal rhythm between chaos and order. As you listen, let your thoughts slow, let your breath soften. You do not need to hold on to anything. Just float, as the lotus floats on calm water. And if you enjoy this journey, if it brings you rest, please remember to subscribe to the channel, so you can return whenever you need peace, and so others may find this same gentle path to sleep. Now, let us begin where all things began. In the quiet, endless waters of Nun. From chaos to cosmos. Float with me, listener, upon the softest darkness. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4, and exhale for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Before sands and cities, before names and memory, there was only Nun, the limitless water, still as a held breath. No shore. No sky. A velvet hush that stretched forever. The ancient ones called it the primeval flood, the possibility of everything resting inside the silence of nothing. In that hush, a pulse. Not a sound yet, a feeling, like the first stir of waking. The waters rippled in slow rings, and upon them drifted a single bud, folded tight as a secret. The bud rose from the dark on a raft of stillness, carried by no wind, needing no path. When it reached the place where is began to think of being, it opened. Petals of blue unfurled, silver with dew that had never fallen. From the center, a glow, warm, curious, like sunlight learning its own name. And the glow spoke. I am Ra. The waters listened. I am the becoming that becomes itself. I am day where there is no dawn, and I speak the names of things so they may stand in the light. He was alone, and yet not lonely. The solitude was a cradle, and Ra was the newborn and the lullaby. He inhaled the sweetness of the lotus, and with each breath, he uttered a word, and with each word, the world exhaled into being. Air, Ra whispered. A coolness lifted from the waters, a freshness you can feel now against your face. Shu, he named it, and the air stirred, laughing softly for the first time, a breeze delighted to discover itself. Moisture, Ra murmured, and a kiss of mist answered. Pearls of damp on the unseen skin of the world. Tefnut, he named her, and she shivered into presence, delicate as a cloud and strong as the tide. Shu and Tefnut circled their father, joyous, new. They danced a slow dance of inhalation and exhalation, of caress and coolness, and Ra smiled to see balance take its first steps upon the waters of Nun. Go, he said. Explore the stillness and teach it to listen for music. They went, hand in hand, the first couple, air and moisture, wandering the unmarked horizon. Time had not yet learned to count, so no one knew how long they were gone. Ra waited, and in his waiting, he learned something new, longing. He peered into the shimmering distances. Children, he called, sunlight leaning over silent waves. His voice was a golden bridge, but no footsteps returned on it. Concern gathered like a winter in his chest. I will send my eye, Ra decided, and from his brow he loosed a brilliant gaze that could search the folds of nothing and find two breaths holding hands. The eye streaked across the waters, seeking, until she found Shu and Tefnut, lost in the shimmering passages of Nun, enamored of their own reflections in those mirrored halls. Come back, the eye sang, and the couple followed her song. When Ra saw them again, bright with discovery, his joy spilled over. Tears, warm as morning, fell from his eyes onto the lotus that bore him. Where his tears touched the flower, new beings rose, humanity, many and many, each one a little dawn, blinking, wondering. Ra, who had known solitude, smiled at the multitude. May you remember, he told them, that you are born from my joy. Live so that joy persists. The humans nodded, but they were newborns, they would have to learn the language of balance. The rise of Ra. Sit with me, Ra invited, and the sun rose, first sunrise. A path of gold unrolled across the waters. On it, a bark assembled, cedar that had never known earth, oars carved of light, and at the prow a small painted eye to see the unseen. Ra stepped aboard, and with him, time stepped aboard too. Shu, he said, hold me up. The air lifted his boat. Tefnut, he said, kiss the path and keep it cool. The mist settled, a veil of comfort. Now, Ra breathed, and with each exhale he spoke a word, and with each word the unseen grew visible. Earth, he uttered, and the floor of the world rose like the back of a sleeping lion, tawny and warm. Geb, he named him, and the earth rumbled in a friendly way, settling his great bulk, speckled with stones, green with the hope of reeds. Sky, Ra said, voice widening. She arched in answer, a vast woman stretching from horizon to horizon, her skin dusk blue and jeweled with seeds of light. Nut, he named her, and she smiled, rolling playfully over the world so that stars spilled like laughter. They loved each other at once, Geb and Nut, as if love were the simple gravity of what must be together. They folded into each other, sky against earth, a continual embrace. It was beautiful, and it was too much. Children, Ra murmured, we need space for walking, for growing. Shu understood. He stepped between them, gentle and firm, hands to the heavens, feet on the soil. With a tender strength, he lifted Nut, arched her high so that day could stroll beneath and night could curl against the ground and dream. Geb grumbled, missing her weight. Nut bent to him, fingers of light brushing mountains, voice like 1,000 tiny bells. We are not apart, she said. We are the shape of a world. The Enneads embrace. Nut's laughter became seasons. Her sigh became evening. Her smile, the curve of the moon. In the shelter of the sky, life learned to stand. Osiris was firstborn, green-skinned, bright-eyed, with a crown of tall white plumes. He stepped onto the land and it bloomed beneath his feet, barley thrust up like fresh thoughts, date palms shook their bracelets of fruit, the Nile learned the rhythm of giving and returning. Isis came next, with the patience of water-carving stone. She wore the throne upon her head, because wherever she sat, a kingdom took its shape around her. She studied the names of things until they opened to her like tulips at dawn, and she spoke those names as blessings. Set was born with the rattle of thunder in his chest. He was red-haired and quick-tempered, the desert loved him, and he loved the hard lessons of its wind. He was not cruel by design, he was simply the part of the story that tests the rest. Nephthys arrived with evening in her eyes, a dusky grace that knows how to sit beside loss without fear. She walked quietly, a hand always ready to hold another's. Together they learned what it means to be divine in a world filling with mortals. Osiris taught farmers the language of seeds. Isis taught healers to listen with their palms. People gathered to hear them, and the Nile glided past like time, wide and blue. Brother, Set said one day, watching people praise Osiris. You are much loved. Osiris smiled. Love is a flood that leaves fields fertile. And what of the desert? Set asked, chin lifting toward his own red horizon. Where the flood does not go? There too we will learn, Osiris said, and meant it. But the compliment fell like a thin rain on Set's dry heart. He turned away with hot wind in his hands. The feast and the coffer. On a night when the moon was a silver drum, Set planned a feast. He called it in Osiris's honor, and musicians tuned their harps with songs that made wine taste like stars. He had commissioned a chest, cedar, glossy, beautiful, inlaid with lapis that looked like nuts scattered sky. He had measured it himself, quietly, when Osiris fell asleep one afternoon in the shade of a sycamore. It matched his brother exactly. "Let us play a game," Set announced, smiling with all his teeth. "Whoever fits this chest perfectly will keep it." One by one the guests lay down in it, laughing at their long feet, their wide shoulders. Too small, they cried. Too large, they laughed again. The chest waited, patient as a trap that believes it is a gift. At last Osiris climbed in, humoring Set. He stretched his length, the wood cupped his shoulders, the lapis winked like friendly stars. "It fits," everyone murmured. It fit. Set moved like a storm. The lid slammed. Nails bit. Hot pitch bled. The music broke mid-note. "Brother!" Isis cried, rushing forward. Set's men seized the chest and heaved it onto their shoulders. The doors of the hall flew open, night swallowed the procession, the Nile received the coffin with a soft sound, as if tucking a child to bed. It drifted, then slipped beneath the black water and went where sorrow goes, away, and everywhere. Isis searches. Isis did not scream. Her breath shivered, once. Then she wrapped herself in linen like a vow and set out along the river's edge. The moon walked beside her. People lit torches when they saw her coming, fishermen drew in their nets and offered bread. Nephthys joined her at the first bend, soft-footed and sure. "North," Isis said. "Listen, the current speaks." They followed it past fields that remembered Osiris's tread, past children who had learned their letters balanced on their fathers' shoulders as they watched the flood recede. The river swelled into the sea, and the sea fumed under the stars. On a far coast, a tamarisk tree had found the sunlit chest lodged among its roots, and in its eagerness to grow, it had embraced it. The trunk swallowed the coffer, and around it the tree thickened, fragrant with hidden grief. Isis came to that city veiled. "May I rest in your palace, just for a night?" she asked the queen. Her voice was a cup of cool water. "Stay," said the queen, moved by a kindness she could not name. Isis sat by the hearth and nursed the queen's ailing child with lullabies that talked to bones. "What do you burn to make the room smell like rain?" the king asked, one evening. "This," Isis answered, touching the palace pillar, the tamarisk that held her love. In her gaze the bark remembered the river. The king sent for his carpenters. They cut the trunk, and from it they built a beam for the palace hall. In the heart of that beam, the cedar box slept. When the palace dreamed, Isis returned. Alone in the hushed hall, she opened the beam with gentle hands and drew out the coffer as one draws out a memory that still breathes. She carried it to the shore and set it in the moonlight. The lid came away with a sigh, and there lay Osiris, as if the Nile flowed beneath his skin. Isis's tears fell, not loud tears. The kind that water seeds. "We have a little time," Nephthys whispered. "Set will come." "Enough," Isis said, and her voice braided grief with purpose. Together they wrapped Osiris in linen kissed with words. They sang a song that taught stillness to listen for heartbeat. They called Anubis, jackal-headed, tender as night, and he came with oils and calm hands. "You honor him," Anubis said, and the linen gleamed. "He will honor you in turn." Set did come, red wind moving the dunes. In his rage, he tore the body into pieces and sowed them across the land like a cruel farmer. "Then we will harvest," Isis said softly. She and Nephthys became kites, wheeling, their keening stitching the sky. Wherever a piece lay, the earth told them. They gathered him, every part. They laid Osiris upon a couch of cedar and perfumed grasses. Isis bent over him, spoke to his shadow, and the shadow answered. "I am going down," Osiris told her, voice like water under stone. "But I will not be lost. I will be the green within the black, the growing after the gone. I will be the lord of the Duat, teaching the dead to find morning." "Then give me a morning," Isis said. The room swelled with a breath that had not been breathed since the lotus opened. For a moment beyond measure, life leaned back toward the living, and Horus was conceived, hawk-eyed hope, a promise with feathers. Horus rises. Isis hid on a marshy island among papyrus tall as worries. Frogs told jokes to the moon. The wind's feet were soft. She nursed her son beneath woven reeds, and the river brought her stories. Set hunts you, fishermen whispered. I will not be found by fear, Isis answered. She taught Horus the names of currents and how to read a shoreline by the song of birds. When a scorpion stung him and his small body cooled, she called on Ra, old son, now elder, and on Thoth, ibis-headed scribe of truth. They came like dawn to a room where night had overstayed. Thoth spoke a spell that was also a diagnosis, and Horus opened his eyes again to see his mother smiling. You will be king, she promised, tucking a stray feather behind his ear. But first you will learn what it means to lose. They left the marsh when Horus could fly. Set stood waiting where the desert begins, tall, red, eyes like dry heat. He laughed when he saw the boy. This is your champion? He asked the horizon. Horus's answer was the rush of wings. They fought, in winds and courts, on cliff edges, in dreams. They fought as brothers fight, because no fight among kin is simple. They fought until the gods called for judgment, and Ma'at, whose feather balances the world, spread a mat woven from the hours of a day. Speak truth, she said gently. Her voice was a plucked string, pure, ringing. I am rightful king, Set declared. The desert teaches teeth. I am rightful king, Horus said. The river teaches patience. Ra listened. Thoth wrote. Isis stood like a lighthouse, steady, while Nephthys stood like a doorway, open. Let the heart of each be weighed, Ma'at proposed. Let truth choose. Whispers of harmony, Ma'at. Picture a hall bright with quiet. Columns painted with lotuses hold up a ceiling scattered with gold stars. At the center stands a great scale, and on one side sits a single white feather. On the other, a heart, yours, mine, Osiris's, Set's, because truth is not a weapon. It is a mirror. The heart settles. The feather waits. Have you made a hungry mouth full? Ma'at asks, not to accuse, but to invite remembering. Have you spoken without breaking? Have you been small when smallness was called for, and great when greatness was needed? The heart listens to itself. It is not a trial of terror. It is a conversation with one's own weight. In that hall, Osiris takes his throne, alive in the way depths are alive. The dead arrive, pale as unanswered questions. Anubis guides them by the elbow to the scale. Thoth records. Ammit, the eater of the not yet true, watches with the patience of a crocodile who knows the river will bring what is meant. A good heart rises, lighter than a sigh. The feather nods, glad. A heavy heart sinks, and the scales tilt, and that weight is given to forgetting. It is not cruelty. It is the mercy of unmaking what cannot yet be gentle. Set stands before the scale. He expects condemnation. Ma'at lifts her chin and looks at him not as a villain but as a necessary shape. You are the desert, she says. Your storms carve truth from laziness. But your chaos must serve balance, or it becomes hunger without end. He bows, startled by being known. His heart flickers on the plate. The feather settles. The scale, for a moment, is perfectly still. Learn, Ma'at says. Horus steps forward. His heart is bright with love and thin with anger. Isis touches his shoulder, and some of that heat leaves him, like steam from bread. The scale sings a little note, agreement. Be king, Ma'at says. But do not forget your uncle is the lesson you will keep studying in every season. Horus took the double crown, white as silence, red as speech. The people shouted, and the Nile rose on cue, like applause from the earth. He built temples where the wind paused to listen, he set judges in market squares who knew how to weigh a deed against the feather of the day. He flew over fields, and barley bowed not from fear but from pride. Set went to the edges where the dunes begin their endless poem. There, he placed his ear to the ground and heard the world turning, slowly, as it must. He learned when to send a sandstorm to scour a lie, when to withhold rain to teach a village the value of its well, and when to stand down so that seeds could keep their promises. Even you, Isis said to him once, meeting him where the sand kisses the silt, have a place in the song. Set glanced toward the horizon, where the sky is always considering leaving. I am the part of the melody that will never be hummed by children, he muttered. She smiled. Children hum the wind all the time. Everyday Egypt, everyday eternity. Under Nut's glittering belly, life found its rhythm. Scribes sharpened reeds and taught numbers to stand in rows. Boatmen pushed through the marshes with the grace of cats. Bakers dusted loaves with sesame seeds that looked like tiny moons. At dawn, priests washed the statues and sang to the first light, not to wake the gods, but to wake themselves to the gods' nearness. In house courtyards, women ground grain and told their daughters how Isis had found her husband by listening to the river. Listen, they said, passing down wooden pestles polished by generations. The world speaks in more than one voice. Hear them all. Boys raced each other along the canals, practicing with throwing sticks as if Horus might appear at any moment and need a clever lieutenant. Cats sat on warm walls, eyes half closed, as if they remembered the first sunlight and were satisfied to see it continue. When the flood came, fields drowned in a green kindness. When the water drew back, it left behind the gift of black earth. Farmers pressed seeds into it like tiny prayers. And in every prayer, a memory, Ra rising, shoe lifting, Tefnut moistening, Geb holding, Nut sheltering, Osiris greening, Isis tending, Set testing, Nephthys consoling. Horus guarding, Maat balancing. The cosmic bark. At dusk, the temples grew blue. Ra, old and young each day, stepped into his night boat. The crew, Sia, perception, who, authoritative utterance, Heka, magic braided into speech, took their oars. Stars leaned close to listen to their own stories told back to them. The bark slid into the western gate where sky pours into below world. There, Apophis, the great serpent of unmaking, rose from coils vast as regret. His mouth was a tunnel. His eyes were two red echoes. Not tonight, Ra said, tired and kind. The crew hauled on ropes that were also hymns. Knives flashed, but they cut only despair. The serpent cannot be killed, because a story needs its pauses, its risks. He can be persuaded to release the boat, and each night he is, and each night he returns, and this, too, is balance. Below ground.